Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience. Hello and welcome back to Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience. I'm your host, Big Les. Now, yes, you get to see my ugly mug yet again for 2024. And I thought, you know what, when we're doing the 17s, why not do it on YouTube? Why not get the YouTube up and running for the 2024 season? So if you're watching on YouTube, g'day. If you're listening in to my beautiful voice on Spotify, that's okay too. You get the same amount of content. You're not missing much on the YouTube front, just quietly. We're going to be going through our best 17s for the 2024 season. We're going to start off with the bottom three teams, the Tigers, the Dragons, and the Bulldogs. I hope you guys are ready for this one and keen for this one, as I am ready to get the YouTube underway, ready to get the 2024 season underway as well. I've been waiting so long. This off-season it's obviously the longest one that I've ever had, or feels like the longest one that I've ever had. So keen to get stuck into a bunch of a rugby league. If you want to listen to the previews for the season as well, make sure you go back and have a listen to those. They only just came out recently, so you don't have to scroll down too far on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. All the previews are out now, going through each of the 17 teams. So if you want to get stuck into that, make sure you do so. But we are going to get started with our 1 to 17s for the Tigers, the Dragons, and the Bulldogs. Let's get started. The Tigers, this one obviously had to make some late changes, obviously due to David Nofaluma leaving, getting a release, and exiting. We've had to change the team and the back line up just a little bit. Also had a few mind changes as well. Listened to some other experts and sort of, agreed, disagreed with some. And we've changed the lineup up a little bit. I'm also taking a bit of a going towards the future sort of look with the West Tigers this season as well. Had Aiden Caesar at halfback, but he's not there anymore. I've got Jaden Sullivan and Latu Finu in there, but we'll get to that in just a second. For the fullback role, I've got Jermaine Buller. He locks himself in, had a really good end of the season. Pretty much all year, he was very consistent. As soon as he came in, he was electric, and I'm keen to see him have a full season with the West Tigers in 2024. So much talent, so much raw ability, and thank fuck he's from New South Wales, because that's going to be unreal for Origin. On the wings, we've got Junior Tupou and Charlie Staines. Junior Tupou, he is going to be on the left-hand side. He did all his best work on that left-hand side. He was on the right when Dave Nofaluma was in the team, but now he's gone back to that left-hand side where he's going to do some of his best work. Going onto that right wing, it was very hard to pick. They've obviously got a few guys waiting to come into first grade, some guys they've got from rugby union as well. But I've picked Charlie Staines just because I think he's got the most experience out of all of them, and he has got so much raw ability. He doesn't really deserve to be sitting in reserve grade for me. I feel like he's one guy that should be in first grade, so he's going to be there on that right wing. Stafford Toa, he's my left center. I've obviously changed this up a little bit, had Adam Dewey in the centers, but I've moved him out of center because I think Stafford Toa, after the back end of the season for him, yes, he had that one big game, but he also played pretty well and pretty consistently throughout the rest of the year as well. So I'm going to have him in there in the centers on the left side. On the right-hand side, to partner up Charlie Staines, it's the new recruit, Justin Olam. Really, really keen to see him have a fresh start. I feel like he's needed a fresh start. Obviously, didn't get the best opportunity at Melbourne towards the back end of the year. He was in reserve grade after recovering from some pretty decent injuries. So keen to see him have a fresh start. I feel like it's exactly what he needs in this West Tigers side. I feel like he's going to get it. In terms of the halves, now, yes, a little bit controversial, but when you're looking at it from the point of view of they need to prepare for the future, they've got to sort out who the 6 is going to be to Jerome Luai's 7, or vice versa, who the 7 is going to be to Jerome Luai's 6, depending on where the West Tigers want him coming into this team. That's going to have to be sorted out this year, and the guys that are going to be battling it out for that jersey are going to be Latu Finu and Jaden Sullivan. It'd be the wrong approach to have Aiden Caesar in the 7, and then going into next year, you have Aiden Caesar there with Jerome Luai, only then for Aiden Caesar to retire or to leave the West Tigers, and then they've got to start from square one with either Jaden Sullivan or Latu Finu. Get these guys blooded in first grade. I think that's got to happen straight away. I obviously had a different opinion on Latu Finu a few weeks ago, but I feel like you just got to get him in straight away now. I feel like these two are going to be battling it out for that number 6 or 7 jersey next to Jerome Luai, Latufanu, and Jaden Sullivan. Jaden Sullivan as well can also play that 14 role off the bench. That's where I had him before. That's where he played with the St. George Illawarra Dragons. But we know how talented he can be at 7. So I think that he is going to get that starting spot with Latu at 6. I'm very keen to see which one of these guys has the biggest season and ends up getting the other half spot to Jerome Luai. But it's got to be preparing for the future now. That's just what it's going to be. In terms of the front row, I think both of these guys lock themselves in. David Clemmer and Stefano Utsukamanu. I've been really impressed with Clemmer coming into this team. He's just put his head down and done his job. Stefano Utsukamanu, I feel like he's going to have a big year. Obviously was up and down last year, was on and off the bench, in and out of the side too at the start of the year. He's got to have a big year for me, Stefano Utsukamanu, find some consistency. I feel like he has so much potential there in the front row. I think he starts. I'm tipping for him to have a big season because I think he needs it. Api Coruscant locks himself in at 9. Not too much to say there. Premiership winning hooker. They've got to have him in the side in that number 9 jersey. There's no one better in the side than Api Coruscant in that number 9 role. He got the 2 best back row pairing, I believe, in the competition at the moment, Isaiah Papali'i and John Bateman. Keen to see them and see if they go to that next level in 2024. I feel like they can in this side, especially with a much better looking side on paper now as well. And Justin Matsumua at 13. I feel like he is so raw. A full year of first grade is something that he needs. I had Fanua Pole there, but I feel like Fanua Pole can also play that front row role as well. I feel like it'd be too similar to a front rower in that 13 jersey, whereas I'd much rather Fanua Pole in that front row rotation. Justin Matamua, I feel like he can be that 13 with a bit of ball playing ability. Obviously, has played a bit of hooker, even though he's the biggest hooker you've ever seen. He has played a little bit of hooker. So, that ball playing and ball handling skills in that 13 jersey is going to be really valuable to the West Tigers. In terms of the bench, I have got Adam Dewey in the number 14 role, just because he can come in so many spots. We're sort of arguing, is he a center? Is he a back rower in this side? Is he a half? Is he a fullback? Where does Adam Dewey fit into this team? If you put him at 14, he can come on anywhere if there's injury, or if you need him in the back row, 13, he'd be a great roaming 13 for me, Adam Dewey. A lot of people would agree. I think in that 14 jersey, it solves most of your problems with Adam Dewey, and you just get to suss out what's Adam Dewey's best position when you put him in that 14 jersey. I feel like the 14 jersey can be his best position too for Adam Dewey. We talked about Fanua Pole before. Very good front rower. He is on my bench in jersey number 15. Alex Twall, I feel like he's been great coming off the bench in 2023. Feel like he's going to be coming off the bench again in 2024. One of the senior guys in this side, going to be leading by example off the bench, having a massive impact. And then Samuel Afinu, someone that I forgot to put in the first lineup when I put the post out the first time a few weeks ago. Struggling to get the words out there just quietly. But Samuel Afinu, I think, will be there as well. Really solid team for the West Tigers going into next year. If there's anyone that I've forgotten about, please let me know, because I tend to do that quite a bit, just quietly. Going into the Dragon side, I'm very keen about this Dragon side as well. I've sort of gone through it, and while, it's not looking like the best team on paper, there's still a few guys that I think can have some big years. And guys, when you sort of put this side together, it's not actually too bad. It's not actually too bad. Yes, they definitely need some more depth in the spine, but when you put this side together piece by piece, it actually isn't as bad as what it sort of seems like and how the media has portrayed it. But let's go through this 1 to 17. It is not the best, but it's not as bad as what people think. At fullback, we got Tyrell Sloan. I don't think Lomax goes to fullback. I think his best position is center, but there's going to be a little bit of alternation. According to Shane Flanagan, they're going to swap mid-game. Tyrell Sloan going into the centers with Lomax going to fullback. We recorded a podcast with our thoughts on that rotation. If you want to go back and listen to that, make sure you do as well. But I don't mind Sloan getting a little bit of a crack at center as well, if that's where they put him. And then Lomax playing at fullback as well. So raw as a footballer. I love watching Lomax play and some of the crazy things he can do with the football in his hands. at his best, he's one of the better centers in the competition, Zach Lomax. So watching him and Tyrell Sloan swap positions back and forth, I think is going to be really interesting. And just the unpredictability of that as well is going to be very cool. And it's something that I'm looking forward to with the Dragons if they do find a bit of success in 2024 and maybe don't become that wooden spoon side like we're predicting them to be. I've got Sione Fainu on one wing. I feel like he's a young guy who've got to get into this 17 somewhere. I feel like he's the future as well, whether that be at center or on the wing. I've got him on the wing to start with Michele Ravalawa on the other wing. Getting one of the young guys in next to Zach Lomax on that left-hand side. Sorry, it depends where Zach Lomax plays. I think Lomax will be on the left with Moses Sully on the right, but it could go either way. But Lomax and Sione Fainu on one side, Moses Sully and Michele Ravalawa on the other. I think that's how it is going to be. Moses Sully always finds his way into this side, whether it be in the centers, on the wing, or wherever. He's always found his way into this 17. I think that he'll be there as well at center. He had a decent year last year as well towards the midpoint of the season. He had some pretty big games for the Dragons. In terms of the halves, there's only one way you can really go here to start the year, and that's Kyle Flanagan at 6, which has been confirmed by Shane Flanagan, and it's Ben Hunt at number 7. Hopefully, they play some decent enough footy for Ben Hunt to want to stay, but all the chat coming out of the Dragons at the moment is that Ben Hunt is confident in Shane Flanagan and confident in how this side is going to go, which is pretty good for the Dragons at the moment. Hopefully, they play some good footy, and hopefully Kyle Flanagan can take a little bit of pressure off Ben Hunt too. I don't want Kyle Flanagan to be the general like Shane Flanagan is portraying him to be. I want Kyle Flanagan to be a 6 and just play his footy, not have too much pressure on his shoulders. There's enough pressure on Kyle Flanagan as it is coming into this side and starting straight away. Everyone's going to spin the narrative of Kyle Flanagan, coach's son. It's not really like that at all. It's literally the only option they really have. Jack Bird isn't going to be there. If you see some photos of him during the preseason, they've built him up to be a back rower. I don't think he will be in the number 6 jersey. They've got Jesse Marschke, but I don't think he starts straight away. I think you find him in the 14 jersey to start the year, unless they put Connor Mullahazen in there. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. He was there towards the back end of the year playing hooker for Jacob Little. But Marschke, he can play hooker as well. He's played pretty much everywhere in the spine for the Bears. So great to have that versatility coming off the bench. We'll talk about that more in a second. But Ben Hunt, Kyle Flanagan, they're the halves starting the year in 2024. Blake Laurie, to start in the front row. He's actually expressed desire to play Origin as well, which is pretty interesting. I feel like he definitely has the potential to do so, and New South Wales desperately looking for some size off the bench. I think he could get there I really think he's a smoky to get there as well. So keep an eye on Blake Laurie in this team. If he works hard enough, he'll be there. And Jack de Belin in the front row as well. Jack de Belin in the front row. A lot of people have him at 13, but I feel like he'll be in the front row. Once you hear my 13, I think you'll agree with me as well. Jacob Little at 9. I feel like that is guaranteed. Had a really good, had some good stints last year. Obviously was in and out of first grade due to some, issues with the coach, I believe. Him and Lomax spent some time in New South Wales Cup at the same time during that midpoint of the season, obviously with Anthony Griffin, and there was obviously some discontent there before he left. But both of these guys, I think, will be shoo-ins for this Dragons team, and I don't think there's much of a choice with the depth that they have at the moment, which is minimal. Jaden Su'A, I think he starts on the left-hand side, that left edge, with Dan Russell staying in the team. I really rate Dan Russell. I think he's a really good footballer. He plays on the right for me. He was so good going down that right-hand side. He almost plays like a second center there in the back row sometimes as well. Got great hands. I think he'll be really good in that 12. And I think he could be really good in the 13 later in his career as well. He's definitely one to watch. Played for PNG in the World Cup and played some really good football. I think he'll be really good this year. He's definitely one to watch in that number 12 jersey, Dan Russell. And Jack Bird is my 13. I feel like they can really make him into a second 5'8" in this team. A big body as well, which is good for the middles. They're all obviously looking for a bit of size in their pack, as well as obviously some depth in the spine. But Jack Bird provides a little bit of size in that 13, but also has some really crisp ball playing, a decent kicking game on him as well. They can build him into that second 5'8" in that number 13 jersey, which is where the game is sort of heading at the moment as well. So Jack Bird is my 13. And then on the bench, we've got Jesse Marschke. I think he'll take that 14 role. As I said, a lot of versatility, and he can play that second hooker role while he's conditioning himself into first grade. And then maybe later on in the year after Origin, if Kyle Flanagan doesn't suit that 6 jersey, Jesse Marschke can take over. He's ready for first grade. We're not talking about a guy that's 19, 20 years old. We're talking about a guy that's 26 years old. He's ready for first grade, and you will see that in 2024. He's definitely one to watch in that 14 if he does play the 14, or if they do chuck him straight away into the 6, which obviously it's been confirmed that Kyle Flanagan will be there, but anything can happen between now and then. So Jesse Marschke is my 14. I've got Toby Couchman in the number 15 jersey, a guy that can play back row and lock. I really rate Toby Couchman. I think both the Couchman brothers are going to be something special, but Toby over Ryan, for me, I really liked Toby. He's a real workhorse and a very passionate footballer as well. He'll be there off the bench for me. Hame Sele, they need a bit of impact off the bench. A lot of people are starting him. I'd have him off the bench just because obviously Jack DeBellin has been moved into the front row. Jack Bird is the 13. Hame Sele can be a really good impact guy off the bench. And then Francis Molo as well. Two really good impact players off the bench in Hame Sele and Francis Molo. Michael Molo could also be there for Francis. It's a real toss-up between both of those guys, but I've got Francis in there, just a little bit more NRL experience, which I think will pay off in the long run. But that is my 17 for the Dragons. Again, if I've missed out on anyone, do let me know. And then the Bulldogs, another side that is looking really, really stacked in terms of their side on paper going into the 2024 season. I'm really excited about the Bulldogs. There's something so aesthetically pleasing about the Bulldogs as well. Not only the jerseys, but just the side on paper. Critter, Cherry, Josh Adokar, Toby Sexton, Matt Burton, Reid Marnie, Viliami Kikau, Josh Curran. So many stars in this lineup. Really keen to see how they go this year. Really stacked lineup. Now, my fullback, it's a real toss-up between Connor Tracy and Blake Taff. I've gone with Connor Tracy to start the year. I really rate Connor Tracy, and he just looks more like a fullback to me than what Blake Taff does. Blake Taff's had a lot of runs in the halves. I feel like Connor Tracy is the better option just to start the year at fullback. Blake Taff, I feel like he does need a few more runs in reserve grade before he does come in. A lot of people do have Blake Taff there over Connor Tracy, but I really rate Connor Tracy highly. And look, it's going to look bad as a Souths fan, but I do like Connor Tracy, and I think that he's the favorite for that fullback jersey. I do think that Critter will end up in the centers, and we'll talk about that in a second. Josh Adokar and Jacob Kiraz on the wings. Josh Adokar is definitely there for me. Really solid footballer, a vet in this side, a leader in this team. I think that he'll definitely be there. A guy that could be pushing for an Origin spot again this year as well. And Jacob Kiraz, absolute gun. A lot of people are pushing him into the centers. A lot of people don't think that Bronson Xerri will be there straight away. I do. So Kiraz is on the wing. I feel like Kiraz's best position as well is on the wing. I don't really rate him as a center. And in talking about the centers, we've got Bronson Xerri playing on the left-hand side with Josh Adokar, and Critter on the right with Jacob Kiraz. It just evens out the center winger pairings on the left and right-hand side. If you were to have Critter on the left and Xerri on the right, it wouldn't be that even. You'd have a very stacked left-hand side of the park, whereas putting Critter on the right, it does even things out a bit, but it could go either or for me. I'm very open to Critter playing on the left. It is a very stacked left-hand side. If you do have Critter over on the left with Adokar, Burton, and Kikau, it is a very stacked left-hand side. But that's my back line. Going into the halves, I've got Burton and Sexton. Burton actually came out on the Let's Trot podcast and said that he wants to prove himself as a halfback. Hopefully that's just a slip of the tongue. I'd love him at 5'8". Everyone loves him at 5'8". He is so good down that left-hand side of the park. And yes, you can play halfback based on the left-hand side, but I feel like, and a lot of people would agree with this, when he did play with the number 7 on his back, he had way too much pressure on him, and it really affected how he played the game. We talk about that on the podcast as well. If you want to go back and listen to that one as well, we really go in depth about Burton and why he should be in that number 6 jersey. But I'm very adamant that Burton should be in the number 6. Less pressure on him. And we've seen when Toby Sexton did come in for that stint before he got injured, those 1 or 2 games, he was outstanding. And they started the games really strong. And that's, I think, that stands out for me for the Bulldogs as well. Just consistency throughout the whole 80 minutes is going to be a big thing for them as well. Starting and finishing the game the exact same way. But Toby Sexton, he's got a lot of pressure on him as well because he's got a guy called Drew Hutchison waiting either in New South Wales Cup or in that 14 jersey for a spot in the number 7. I really do think that Hutcho could end up there to start the year. I've got Sexton because I think Sexton's the future and he deserves the first crack, but there is a lot of pressure on him. There really is. And I hope that he understands that and that he's ready to take on that pressure too going into this season. But Toby Sexton starts at 7 for me. Birdo on the number 6. In terms of my front rowers, I've got Liam Knight and Max King starting. Liam Knight, such a competitor. A lot of people don't rate Liam Knight as much as I do. I really do think, and, watching him in the lower grades for South Sydney, I probably have a little bit more, understanding about Liam Knight to those who have only seen him in first grade. Had a lot of adversity, obviously, over the past 12 months. Really keen to see him get a fresh start, come in really strong and one of the better front rowers in that Bulldogs side for me as well. I think that he's in for a big season, Liam Knight. Max King as well. Obviously been on and off the bench, obviously been in and out of this team as well with injury. I'd love to see him get a full season in Max King because I think that he is a very talented front rower as well. In terms of the number 9, this guy locks himself in. Reid Marnie. I really love Hugh's work at 9. He's one of the better 9s in the competition. He just had a really off year. In the trials, he was fantastic. If he can take that form into this season and going into the 2024 season as well, not just the trials, but for the entire season, if he keeps it consistent, he will be an absolute weapon and one of the better 9s in the competition. I really do think he has the potential to do that. Reid Marnie in this side as well. If this side gets a lot of go forward, he's going to be a big part of their success as well and a big part of their momentum. He gives great service. He's actually one of the better dummy halves in terms of service, in the competition as well. So keen for him to show everyone else that as well. And I love when he jumps into first receiver as well. He's very crafty. He's a guy that I think is going to be a big part of this side's success. I'll tell you that for free. In terms of the back rowers, I've got Jacob Preston starting on the right-hand side. I've got Viliami Kikau adding to the impact on that left-hand side as well. You think about the left-hand side for the Dogs. For me, it's going to be Bronson Sherry, Joshua Adokar. Then you got Viliami Kikau, who is an absolute weapon when it comes to giving service to his outside men, but also a great runner of the football. He runs some great lines, which is going to be really crucial for the Bulldogs as well, just executing those plays. He's a great option on that left-hand side for them. Matt Burton as well. I mean, it is such a stacked left-hand side. You could have Critter over there as well if Bronson Sherry does play on the right, but I've got Sherry on the left just to even it out a little bit, as we said before. In terms of my lock forward, I've got Josh Curran starting there. I think that he will be really, really crucial for them as well in that 13. Was very unlucky not to get a main spot in that Warriors outfit. Obviously struggled with a bit of injury and then, just was in and out of first grade for some reason. He's one of the better forwards in that side, but was just in and out of first grade for some reason. Keen for him to get that fresh start as well. He's one of those guys that really does need a fresh start. And I think the Bulldogs are going to give him that fresh start. Starting in that 13 jersey is where I see him to start the year. I also didn't think they don't have much choice. I think it's either Josh Curran or Raymond Faitala-Mariner. With all the issues that Raymond Faitala-Mariner has had as well in this side, there's obviously been a bit of controversy around him and the Bulldogs. I think that Josh Curran gets the 13 over him. Now, talking about the bench, Hutcho is my perfect 14. He's Mr. Fix-It. He can come in any role, whether it be center, back row, lock, or in the halves, even at 9. He can come in a lot of positions and do a really good job, Hutcho. So I think that he gets the 14 job. Jermaine Salmon, I think that Serraldo, has made it really clear that he is going to be a back rower. So he's on the bench for me. Yes, it's not the biggest bench so far, but wait till you hear the other guys that are going to be on this bench as well. I've got Ryan Sutton on the bench, and I've got Raymond Faitala-Mariner in jersey number 17. I think they do convert Raymond Faitala-Mariner into a front rower. He's definitely got a lot of size in him going into this preseason. Him and Ryan Sutton, I can definitely see as front rowers in this team and having a real impact coming off the bench. A lot of people do have Ryan Sutton starting. I think he's great off the bench, and I think he's going to prove that to a lot of people if he does come off the bench this coming season. But there, my predicted 1 to 17s, my best 17s, I should say, for the bottom three teams, the Tigers, the Dragons, and the Bulldogs. If you like this one, make sure you subscribe to the Big LEZ'S League YouTube. Click that subscribe button. If you're listening on the Spotify, make sure you follow the podcast as well. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Follow the Instagram if you don't already, Big LEZ'S League. And we will see you guys in the next one. We go through the next three teams.